So we will just wait people to start signing in. Decided to do this outdoors on a beautiful summer night. As people start signing in, welcome. A little bit before 7, and let's see, more people are signing in, so welcome, and we will get started in a few moments. Welcome to Zen Times. As you listen to the music, just begin to relax, start to unwind, let go of demands and stresses, and I'll be right back. Welcome to those of you who are still signing in. Gonna wait another minute or so before we get started. Lovely summer evening. To spend some time with Zen Times, looking at how we can explore movement of our daily activities, the greater sense of expanse and depth. And tonight we're going to look at the spiritual aspect of good enoughness. So welcome to you all. And before we get going into this evening's edition of Zen Times, let's just take a moment and get comfortable. Wherever you may be sitting, wherever you may be laying, just this time to settle in and take this time for your time. A time where there are no demands, no expectations. No shoulds or oughters. Just this time to take your time. And as you do that, begin to bring your attention to how your body is breathing. The breath is such a powerful way of reconnecting and also disconnecting from all the noise, the busyness, the frenetic activity, and to connect with something more spacious, more quiet. And more useful. And as we proceed with each edition of Zen Times, each one is one to build on the previous ones. We started out talking about the idea of how our minds create a sense of separateness between who we think we are and how we relate to everything else out there, and how that is a source of suffering and struggle, and how it interferes with our personal and spiritual growth. So tonight, our Zen Times is going to be about looking at this chronic sense that many of us carry around of not being good enough, not measuring up, and how to return to our basic inherent sense of good enoughness. So just take a moment and relax. Take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And feel that sense of releasing, that sense of letting go, that sense of returning home to a place of spacious and calm. And I will ring the bowl several times as a way of reminding to come back home, to come back to where we feel a sense of centered. Sounds, just follow the tone as it recedes into a more and more quiet place. And when we look at deepening our sense of good enoughness. It is a time to return to a place of remembering that goes beyond all that we've been taught to think and feel. So, enoughness. What does enoughness mean? I had posted on the Zen Times site an individual's concept of enoughness, and I wanted to build on that tonight and then end with a sense of relaxation and a meditation. It's this idea of how, especially as we look at how we learn to think and feel about ourselves, it comes from an external place. How other people define how we're supposed to think and feel. So we're constantly struggling to measure up, struggling to be good enough by some external standard. And if we don't meet that external standard, we are left with a sense of deficiency, a sense of emptiness, a sense of not good enough. So we try harder. We read another book. We watch another TED Talk. We go to another retreat. And so we go outside of ourselves to think that something out there is going to fulfill that sense of not good enoughness. So consider this. Not good enoughness is learned. Enoughness is inherent. Think about that for a while. As we try to prove ourselves and define ourselves and try to impress other people, we are doing it based on the ways that we have been taught to think and feel, how we have learned. But in order to really grasp a sense of enoughness, it is important for us to stop the external chase and recognize that how our enoughness is, I don't want to say defined, how it is expressed, has nothing to do with all those external things. So when we're struggling with trying to measure up to an external, it goes to what we talked about several sessions ago in Zen Times about that sense of separation. I am here and there is that external standard out there. And unfortunately, that external standard is not something that we can achieve in totality. So it calls us to really look at how much we express ourselves or demand of ourselves to be perfect. If I am perfect, then. And that's not a requirement. What if being enough is enough? That it's not a matter of saying, I have to be perfect. So this idea of enoughness in our spiritual growth is being able to accept ourselves as we are. Warts and all. Imperfections, mistakes. It was never about being perfect. It was about being true to ourselves and doing the work to discover what that larger self is, not the ego self, not the self that says, oh, well, you got to do this more, you got to do that more, you got to go to this college, you got to earn this much money and all this kind of stuff. But it's more that sense of a deeper sense of okayness, just the way things are. So when we're struggling with our chronic sense of not good enoughness, we're filled with fear and doubt and aggression because we feel separate from our participation in how we belong to what is occurring, rather than being separate from what is occurring. Because once we do that, it becomes a threat. It becomes something we're afraid of and we have to try to control. But when we begin to embrace the fact that we are part of, rather than a part from, we can relax, join the dance, and not allow our doubts and worries and fears to eclipse our basic okayness. Our brain cannot convince our heart. And frequently in my own practice and in working in my professional career, I saw people really working at, well, if I take these 10 steps towards, or if I embrace this person's teachings, if I say enough positive affirmations, the brain can convince the heart. The heart knows better. And when our heart is encased with a sense of not good enoughness, based on decades of learning and experience, nothing will get through. So when we relax and begin to embrace our good enoughness, it opens up the possibility of experiencing what we were never taught to think and feel, and that is that we are good enough. So when we really look at this, and when we apply this, especially when we are in the face of difficulty, conflict, fear, aggression, any kind of difficulty, we end up ruminating about what we could have done differently, what we could have said differently, how we could have reacted differently. And all that ruminating. And we've all struggled with that when we've had a conflict, and we might be driving home, and we're running it through our minds in terms of, oh, but he said this, and I should have said that, and why didn't I do this, and how come he's acting this way? All of that is rooted in our basic belief in not good enoughness. That somehow we're deficient. We didn't measure up. We have to prove ourselves. We have to be right. We have to justify ourselves and clear out all the shoulds and woulds and all those kinds of things. And it's based on our smaller sense of self that is separate from our direct experience of good enoughness. So what I'd like to do right now is to ask you to just simply return your attention away from what I'm saying and reconnect to remind yourself that how you are and where you are at any given time is what you can do. So close your eyes for a moment and relax. Take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck and your jaw, and just let your breathing become more relaxed. An easy in-breath and easy out-breath, all the way down through a sense of comfort and relaxation. And to remember and to remind yourself that there are so many distractions, pulls on your attention, on your self-worth, on your good enoughness that come from the outside. That our work really becomes to remind ourselves to soften the encasement in our heart. That encasement of fear and doubt and worry about our own worth. And let it begin to relax so that we can make room for our inherent good enoughness to begin to flourish. Because it's there. It's there. I remember when I was a youngster, probably 12, 13 years old, I was walking around in my church. I grew up in the Episcopal Church. And there was a brochure there that I opened it up and I won't go into the whole detail about it, but one of the things that it said in there that just really struck me is that we are all born sinners. And even at that age, I really began to think, how does a newborn infant be born a sinner? And so I really began to ask myself, where does the definition of our goodness come from? And it wasn't just at 12, 13 years old, certainly. But as I progressed and I began to inquire about the deeper parts of spirituality, not just the kind of the pop psychology, gosh, I'm good enough and people like me kinds of things. That won't really sink in unless we soften how afraid our hearts are. So I'd like you to just take a moment and consider these statements. And I'd like you to take these statements into your daily lives as reminders, reminding. The first one is this: I am good enough. I am doing enough. I will be enough. Not based on whether you measure up or you've proved yourself or you've accomplished something. Just that basic sense of I am enough. I'm doing enough. I will be enough. And our critical judgment mind will kick in and say, yeah, but you're not perfect. You're not perfect. Hallelujah, we're not perfect. And begin to embrace, what does being enough without having to be perfect really mean in terms of our expanding and deepening our spiritual and personal growth. And oftentimes we struggle with the past. We have a lot of regrets and doubts and, oh, what should I have done or what have you. And here's another way of looking at how to really embrace the past in a more meaningful way. I was enough. I did enough. It was enough. And watch how your judging mind kicks in with, yeah, but it wasn't perfect. It didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Not everybody was happy. And all of that is how our not good enoughness gets defined and eclipses our basic inherent, it's okay to be enough without being perfect. So I would invite you to just sit, and whichever one seems to resonate the most with you. I am enough, I'll do enough and I will be enough, or I was enough, I did enough, and it was enough. If there's something that you're holding on to that is feeding your sense of not good enoughness, whether it's how you're feeling now or what you're carrying along in the past, stay with those statements. If it's something in the present, I am enough. I do enough and it is enough. Or if it's in the past, I was enough, it was enough, and I was enough. And see what begins to happen when you just, without judgment, without criticism or opinion, let that really sink in deeply and hold it there. And notice what begins to happen. And when your mind resists and your small ego mind wants to say, yeah, but, just notice that and come back to that. I am enough, I am doing enough, and I will be enough. Or I was enough, I did enough, and it was enough. And just as we talked about in previous sessions, it's reminding of our larger self, our larger place in it all, rather than our small mind saying, yeah, but you have to live up to all these other kinds of things. So come back to that over and over and over again. I am enough. I'm doing enough. I will be enough. And watch how your ego wants to kick in and say, but it ain't perfect. And smile and say, thank goodness. inherent sense of goodness, good enoughness comes from within, not in a book, not in a retreat, not even in Zen Times. It comes from reminding of our inherent good enoughness. So take a moment, reorient, and as we close up for tonight, I would continue to encourage you to use the things we have discussed in the past Zen Times and in this one, and take time, if not every day, then several times a week, and work with these tools. And as I mentioned in the very first Zen Times, the one thing about Zen that oftentimes gets misunderstood is Zen is not so much a religion as it is a method that points the way to a deeper, more expansive spirituality. Whatever your tradition might be, it is a method. And each Zen Times will continue to develop that sense of method about how to get from here to there without a sense of perfection, without a sense of should or ought to. So I would encourage you to take some time throughout the week and apply these methods and see what begins to happen. Don't look for it. Don't kind of say, oh, well, if I do this, then that should happen. Just watch what begins to open up for you as you expand these methods and embrace things in a way that's more expansive and much deeper. So it isn't a matter of trying to find answers. There's a lot of things out there that are trying to provide a sense of this is how you do it. But to reflect back several thousand years ago when Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, stated before he died, "Do not follow me. Do not build temples for me. Become a lamp unto yourself and follow the light." Powerful, powerful. Several thousand years ago, an individual had a sense that it came from within, not from without. So I want to say good evening. Thank you for tuning in. And in 2 weeks, we will rejoin. That session will be about the role of silence and how silence cultivates or gets us closer to experience our basic good enoughness and how important silence really is. It's not something that is encouraged or developed, but it's something that is so important for our spiritual and personal growth. So that's what we'll be talking about and exploring. in a couple of weeks and how it relates to what we've done already. So thank you. Thank you so much, and hope to see you. If you feel these are helpful, tell a friend, and we can all go on this journey together. So much thanks, and gasho.